Hey everyone, and welcome to Backseat Sports. I'm Josh, and that is Caleb, and we are back with the wrap up. It's the end of the year. Obviously, we didn't make a video last week, so this is the first time you've seen us since the Iowa game. Not ideal. Caleb, what's going on?
Don't talk about it.
I know. It's rough.
I was visibly upset. I was angry.
Yes.
I said mean things at my television.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a rough one. I really believe Scott Frost is going to pull away the win. Fun enough, I actually picked the right score, except I gave the 3 points to Nebraska instead of Iowa.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
very, 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 very frustrated. I thought we were going to get to a bowl game. And we said, would the turnover kill us or not? And it didn't help. And our special teams also reared its ugly head.
Of course. I mean,
That
that's a
game too.
huge. I mean, today we're doing the good, there could be something there, the bad and the ugly of the year. Kind of, we're doing like a whole thing of review. Again, obviously the Iowa game was rough and not what Nebraska fans wanted to see. We all would have loved to see that bowl game, and it's not going to happen again. But I do think there's some good things to talk about. We wanted to talk about all of it today. So whether it be the good, there could be something there, the bad, or the ugly. With that said, I mean, where do you want to start? Do we start in the good? Do we start in the bad? Do we start in the ugly? Where do you think, Caleb?
Well, I think since the bad and the ugly are the more interesting part, we can start with the good. We can work to,
all right.
We
all
can
right.
work to the more spicy.
Positivity at the start. So, but I guess where we'll start is the most obvious of the good. It's Wan'Dale Robinson. I mean, I don't think we need to talk about this too much because it's pretty obvious. But Wan'Dale, was the man for Nebraska most of this year. When he was on the field, this offense was better. It was more explosive. There's a lot more going on with it, and it just felt more dangerous. And Wan'Dale's going to be a great player for Nebraska, man. Moving forward, I can't be more excited about him. I'm pretty sure most of you are pretty excited to see what Wan'Dale can do in his career at Nebraska. He's definitely in the good.
Dedrick Mills also snuck his way into the good toward the end of the season. Our O-line had improved enough where we could finally start to see him run the ball a little bit. And it was nice to see him. He did a lot of nice things. He broke off some big runs. Obviously, towards the beginning of the year, he had the fumble bug. He wasn't as decisive.
At the beginning of the year,
the O-line couldn't hold anything. So we didn't know really what it was yet, as Josh and I had said throughout the year. We haven't really got to see a fair shake of this kid yet. And once we finally did, we saw a bright spot, somebody that can be a featured running back for Nebraska, who can run in between the tackles. He can break tackles. And somebody who's only going to get bigger and better at Nebraska. So that was an exciting highlight as well moving forward.
I'm definitely excited to see what he can do next year. I think there's a lot of potential for him in a senior season with Nebraska with a whole year in the offense. And we saw what he could do. And if the offensive line can get to a point where they're even mediocre, if they're like top 30, top 40, I think Dedrick could make something happen with an offensive line that could do something like that. So if we can get to that point, I think Dedrick will be a pretty exciting player to watch. Obviously, I think J.D. Spielman still deserves to be in the good category as well.
Every year.
Every year. I mean, this year he just didn't see the touches. I think we might talk about the usage of J.D. Spielman later. J.D. Spielman as a player is still a really, really great player. And alongside Wan'Dale and Dedrick and, hopefully our quarterback situation next year, I think our offense should be fine. So he definitely deserves to be in the good.
The next good is McCaffrey. Ooh, spicy.
Yeah, in the good.
I mean, he was. He scored a touchdown when he needed to when Federal got hurt in the Indiana game. Like that, what pressure for just a true freshman kid. Hadn't seen the field really, seen a snap. Goes 5 for 7, has a touchdown drive.
Yeah.
No less to get the game back to manageable. Like, that's so impressive. And then in the Iowa game, his number gets called again, and in one play, he scores a touchdown, throws a dime to J.D. Spielman. That's so impressive, so clutch. Even though we didn't get to see much of him, when he did, he made the most of his snaps. He made the most and to say, hey, I'm ready, I can play football.
Yeah.
And it was super impressive, so he's definitely in the good.
Yeah, I mean, he just shined when he needed to, and I think, when we saw him, he showed enough to be put into the category of good. I think everyone's pretty excited to see what we can get from Luke McCaffrey moving forward. I mean, the name alone gets you excited. What we saw in the field, I think, got us even more excited. And, I was definitely skeptical. I didn't want to believe the hype until I saw it. And I feel like, when you combine the whole season and put it together as a whole, we saw enough where you can be pretty excited about Luke McCaffrey moving forward. And there's probably going to be a lot of debate this offseason about who should start next year. I'm sure we'll be talking about that a lot. But defensively, there's definitely a handful of guys where, I think we were pretty excited about it. Cam Taylor's the first one, at least when I think of the defense, it comes to mind for the future in this year as a whole. I was just really excited about Cam Taylor throughout the year, and when he was out there, he played really, really well. I know he struggled with some injuries. He made his fair share of mistakes, just like almost every single player in this defense did. He was a playmaker, and he forced fumbles. He got to the ball. He was one of the guys this year. I was just excited to see him make plays. I just thought he brought a lot of energy to the team, which puts him in the good category.
Obviously, during the beginning of the season when he was forcing the fumbles, that was super exciting. He was leading the Big Ten at one point in time. It was awesome. And then another defensive guy is JoJo, which hasn't been a shocker. Last year, he really came on. He kept us in the Ohio State game single-handedly, with his creating turnovers, creating big plays, tackles for loss. He's just an impressive player who did more of the same, hard-nosed football player. Speaking of usage, I think we might have to put how much we used him in a different category, but he's a great player.
I think another player who I was really happy with when we saw him on the field, especially near the end of the year, was Ben Stille.
He did step up.
He really stepped up near the end of the year. I mean, he started seeing the field more, which, again, this was something we talked about in our videos. We thought he should have seen the field more than he did earlier on in the year. But by the end of the year, he was really stepping up and played really, really well. And so I'm going to put him in the good as well.
Yeah, and then finally towards the end of the season, we started to see less penalties.
Yeah,
that was good,
not
too.
Just less, but really fantastic in the penalty category, yeah.
We actually finally did a good job for the first time in forever.
Literally.
We were 23rd in the country on penalty yards per game at the end of the season, which is crazy.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the year, we were in the top.
We were outside the hundreds after the first 5 games.
It was bad. And so we only had 43.2 penalty yards per game. Especially for where we started, that's a pretty impressive stat.
Yeah.
We had to go. We had some games where we had 0 penalties.
Yeah.
Great.
That's the thing. I think the improvement in that category is probably the most obvious, concrete improvement of this season for a team where, I mean, my goodness, at the beginning of the year, it was terrible. Penalties everywhere, especially on special teams, which didn't necessarily get cleaned up throughout the year as much as offensively and defensively. For us to end up 21st in penalties per play, 23rd in penalty yards per game. So, I mean, we really tightened things up in that category, and that was fantastic to see because, my goodness, the past 5 years have been painful for Nebraska football with penalties.
So the next category is there could be something there.
Yeah.
So it's not worth to put them in the good because it's not quite there.
Or it's not decided yet,
But we can't put them in the bad because they did some good things. So we're just we're fence sitting on this one.
Or where the guys have potential, but maybe we just want to see a little bit more from them or something like that.
Yeah. The first one is Brendan Jaimes. He ended up having a pretty decent year. I think it really highlighted in the Iowa game in the last game of the season when he faced off against AJ Espinoza in the first half. I saw really good things. He did some fantastic jobs holding him off. When he was just bull rushing, I was pretty impressed.
Until Iowa found the weak link.
Until the second half when they stopped targeting him and they started going at Hickson and Bo Wilson.
They found the weak link.
And started mesh rushing, where it's kind of going to the inside. AJ was held pretty well in that first half, but just manhandled.
And then ended
Hickson
up with 14 tackles
in the second half. Yeah.
Yeah, not ideal. I mean, I think sticking with the offensive line, I agree with Jaimes. I think he has potential to be a really solid player. I'm excited to see what he can do next year, and hopefully the unit just needs to come together. The communication needs to improve. There was some massive lapses of communication on this offensive line as a core, and I think part of that came with the inexperience, of the center, Cam Jurgens. But I think as the year came along, he grew a lot as a player. I mean, you expected that as a freshman coming in. Not playing center ever before, but the growth was there. I think he played a lot better near the end of the year. He blew it a lot less, which was definitely good to see. I mean, his growth isn't nearly as much as a lot of other players on the team when it comes to how far up the scale he is talent-wise, but I think the growth from, point A to point B is pretty big for Jurgens, and I was happy with it as the year progressed.
Yeah, I think at his best, Jurgens is going to be a center who's going to be able to really pull over places well. Yeah. I saw him do a really good being pretty mobile on blocks when he knew what he was doing towards the end of the season.
That was the thing.
So he
gets lost.
He is faster and he can get to blocks. It's just when he knows what to do. But I think he's in the category. He's definitely not terrible. He wasn't just getting manhandled and overpowered like he was at the beginning of the season or just confused. With 3 more years of him,
he'll be in pretty good shape, I think. Yeah, by his junior year, I think he'll be really, really good. I think the next, there could be something there was Braxton Clark, and just kind of looking forward towards the secondary next year as a whole. I'm really excited about the secondary next year. I'm sure we'll talk about a lot more of that in the offseason. But Braxton Clark, I think we saw a lot of good things from him as a whole. I think he'll be able to replace Lamar Jackson pretty effectively. I'm not that worried about losing Lamar Jackson personally. I don't think that the leadership there and tackling efforts necessarily helped the team much. And of course, when it came to like him as a lockdown corner, he was obviously effective. But when it comes to Braxton Clark, I think we saw a lot of good things near the end of the year, and I'm excited about him and looking forward to seeing what he can do next year.
Yeah, and getting Deontay Williams back healthy will be good. Dismuke, I don't know. I felt like he regressed this year, but even still, I think our secondary is going to be a very good part of our defense next year. If everybody can continue to improve, I think it would be pretty good for sure.
The next guy is another guy where I'm pretty excited about him. I think he brings a lot of passion to the table. He brings a lot of effort to the table, and that's Garrett Nelson. I mean, we saw how much it matters, how much he cares about this team and how this team performs, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do in the future. I think he's definitely in the there could be something there category. I think if he continues to improve like he has, I think we're looking at a pretty solid player, a player that can really, really fill a needed hole for Nebraska next year, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he can play.
Same. I think Reimers, too, another guy who is in a very similar boat to Garrett Nelson. I think he can be a real stud for that linebacking core. Obviously, Nebraska needs help there bad. A lot of our issues stemmed from that place, and just the whole front seven in general was messy at a lot of points in the season.
Right.
Everything was on the defensive end at some point in the season. But the front seven, we couldn't get a lot of pressure whatsoever to the quarterback. Even on just, straight 3-4 guy rushes, our coverage was bad.
Yeah.
Our run defense was bad at points. There's a lot needed there, and the linebacking core, we're going to really need a lot of strength.
Yeah, the majority of our sacks this year mostly came from coverage sacks. I mean, there wasn't very many times where you're like, wow, we got there in 2 seconds. Like, that was not the case most of this year.
And if it was going to be like a safety or corner blitz.
Yeah, it was a corner blitz or like an unusual blitz package.
Cam's coming out around the edge or JoJo's coming around. But besides that, like, we weren't getting sacks fast.
Yeah.
Our linebackers were not getting sacks.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, another guy, who I thought we saw some good things from was Damian Daniels, the brother of Darion. I'm excited to see what he can do. I mean, we saw Darion being a pretty effective player as a leader this senior year, and I think we can see the same things from Damian. He obviously has the same type of build. He plays D-tackle. I think there's a lot of good things we've seen from Damian. Like, again, moving forward, he could be a pretty important centerpiece for this defensive line.
Especially like in those last few games. Wisconsin especially, I thought he had a pretty good game.
Yeah.
Really physical. I liked how physical our defensive line was in the Wisconsin game. That's like one of the only times this year I was like, wow, we look physical. We're bringing it to them. So that definitely needs to improve. But yeah, I agree. Damian Daniels looked good. We're going to lose a lot at the D-line with, the Davis brothers. Obviously, Khalil the most. He got sacks. He was one of the few guys that could really get in there and pressure the quarterback.
Yeah.
Not just on coverage. And Darian did a good job sometimes on some run stops too. He fought hard, but just all around. That front seven needs to get better, but I think it can improve. I don't think it's hopeless.
Yeah. The next thing is kind of like there could be something there, I feel like, is the turnover improvement. It did regress in the defensive side when it comes to takeaways. But we definitely were a little bit more frugal with the ball, at least near the second half. In the second half of the year, obviously we still had our struggles, but specifically in like the fumbling category, I felt like things turned around a little bit for us. Obviously the quarterbacks had their struggles when it came to passing. That was obvious, but I think there was some progression with how we handled the ball near the end of the year. Sometimes you just had to force some things, and it resulted in turnovers. You made some bad mistakes. Like the Vedral fumble against Indiana sticks out as a pretty devastating turnover. But
the Martinez Purdue one. The Martinez Purdue pick.
Right. Yeah. There was obviously some monumental turnovers, but at least we didn't have like any 3 turnover games near the end of the year. We didn't completely lose the game off turnovers like we had in the past year and a half in some certain situations. So I guess that's a positive, but again, that's why it's in the there could be something there category. Oh boy.
Now we're getting to the bad. There's a laundry list of things that we can talk about in the bad. But let's talk about some good things that we didn't use enough to start off with the bad. And JD is the first one that comes to mind. He had the least amount of touches that he has had in his 3 years here at Nebraska with only 53.
Yeah.
And he played the most that he'd played in the last 3 years.
He only missed a half, you know? Not
so
ideal.
terrible. Like, you got to get him the ball. Like, he was getting 65 touches while missing games last year. Like, this is a guy who needs 75 touches every single season. You just have to have it.
He just deserves it. I mean, it feels like it only makes sense. Yeah.
He's a game changer. You put the ball in his hands, good things are going to happen. He needs 75 touches. Yeah, in every single season. I mean, I'd love 100, but he needs the ball.
Yeah, it was mind-blowing, you know? Like
so many games we were like, Josh and I just kept saying, why did Spielman only get 3 touches?
Again, there were some games where the defenses did a good job of scheming him out, and like it just shows in the lack of depth we had at wide receiver. The teams just weren't worried about anyone else besides JD at that position. That definitely played part of it in some of these games. You know, there definitely were instances where you're like, man, we need to find a way to get the playmakers the ball. We need to find a way to get JD the ball, and it just didn't happen. And I mean, it's just something that we're going to keep talking about, something that we're going to be looking forward to next year. And, you know, in a year where it felt like we just needed to get the ball to the playmakers any way possible, we really just didn't do that as much as you thought we would. And so that's kind of why we have it in the bad category.
And then that's same with JoJo, too. He just wasn't on the field enough, putting him at his own position and not being on there for all the snaps. He's just a player that you need to have on the field. He makes plays for you. And he's a Band-Aid, too. When a bad play happens, he's one of those guys that can come across the field and make a tackle to prevent a touchdown. You know, they can make a 20-yard game maybe only be 15 or 10 because he's so good at football, because he realizes he has a nose for the ball. He understands what's going on. And I feel like not that many people on our team do have that. So why is he not on the field almost all the time? We said it, too, with Stilley. Stilley was one of those guys on the edge that could really change plays, that worked hard, that was hungry to get tackles, to get sacks. And he wasn't on the field enough either. So all those were just kind of really frustrating for us. Why aren't our best players on the field?
It seemed like sometimes people would isolate his mistakes, but what I really liked about JoJo's game was that he was really decisive. I mean, you know, when he was trying to make that play or crashing on that ball, sometimes he missed the play action, or sometimes he missed the reverse or something like that. He didn't always stay home, but I know, you know, there's a way to play football where if you trust your instincts enough, eventually you're going to start making the big-time plays. And JoJo's a home run hitter. He goes for those big-time plays, and I respect that as a player. And you can have those guys on your team as long as the rest of your guys are still, you know, playing the fundamental football. But that's kind of been the problem for the defense. And, like, I understand that from, like, a coaching perspective, why you may not want the riskier player on the field. But, man, I agree with Caleb, though. He was a Band-Aid. And you need those guys on the field, whether he's going to make the big-time plays or he's going to come and clean up the mess that the other guys made. JoJo's a good player and deserves to see the field more.
In the bad was the quarterback play
situation.
It was a whole mess.
It was a mess. It was.
And the mess kind of squarely falls on Martinez's shoulders. He did not play great this season. He started off normal, I guess. He wasn't fantastic, but it wasn't ugly.
He started off ordinary. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, why aren't we seeing more magic? Obviously, the Colorado game was ugly all around. We choked a 17-point lead in the first half.
Yep.
And that falls on a lot of things. Scott Frost played way too conservative, and so that was on him for that. We didn't play great, and that was a bad way to kind of start the early goings of the season for us. It got worse after the Illinois game. We all kind of looked around and we're like, okay, Martinez is back. He made some great throws. He threw for a ton of yards. He had touchdowns.
Yeah.
Sure, he had the mistakes, but he fixed it because he played great. So it's gonna be fine.
But in Waltz is the Buckeyes, and then everything changed. Martinez.
And then he had 50 yards, and from then on it was just
Martinez
over.
lost all confidence after that. I mean, he threw those picks, the Akuta pick to JD, like in that game, and then you go into Northwestern, the offense just is tragic, just terrible.
Wandale carries us.
Right. Game. I mean, Wandale makes the plays, and you break off just those big plays to give us a chance, and allowed us to win that game. But I mean, after that, it was just tragedy after tragedy with Martinez, and then of course Vedral played against Minnesota and didn't look good in that game, and
against Indiana he looked good, and then
right. But then he makes the biggest mistake of the year probably when it comes to the fumble, which cost us so big, and
I think the sack that took us out of field goal range in the Wisconsin game by Martinez. I think that one's the worst.
But there was other opportunities in that game. The Indiana game, like that was truly the deciding moment. You know, like it was a 10-point swing in that game. Like that.
Yeah, but it was still in the first half, and we did come back. The defense played bad in the second half too. Really bad.
I don't know. That one just really stuck out to me as a painful moment, like a painful.
Oh no,
but
it sucked. I remember literally saying that's a 10-point swing.
Right. So no, I agree. I mean, of course, Martinez made his fair share of mistakes. I mean, that pick in the Iowa game was painful too. They hurt. But overall, the quarterback situation is just a complete mess. We're going to be going this offseason. It's going to be the talking point of Nebraska football heading in this offseason. That you're going to have your bets about whether or not Martinez is starting, McCaffrey starting, Vedral starting. Who knows? You know, I mean, at this point,
who knows?
Who knows with how this quarterback situation shake out?
I feel like all three of them have a pretty good argument. But I think Martinez is the weakest argument for me, just because we've seen him for 2 years now. And
yeah,
we have 9 wins.
It's in the bad for a reason, and hopefully things can get fixed as we move out throughout the year. But yeah, so the next thing, I think Stoll's let's just put them all together. The wide receivers, the external blocking for Nebraska,
not
ideal. The edge blocks just bad all year long, and it really was highlighted in like some of these games near the end of the year where we were trying to run these screen passes, specifically in the Iowa game. My goodness.
Let's not forget too that Adrian Martinez was throwing absolute dimes of screen passes.
Oh, yes.
Let's throw it behind the wide receivers.
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't help when you're
the blocking has to be there too. Yeah. 100%.
And, JD wasn't doing a good job of it. Stoll wasn't doing a good job of it.
Do you remember at the beginning of the year when Stoll said that I think our offense is going to be able to put 50 to 60 up on each team?
Yeah.
Do you remember when he said that at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, it's not ideal, Not good.
Oh, I was so excited after that with his mullet, and then it was just pain.
I know. It hurts. This doesn't make sense. I mean, I feel like we should be able to hold those blocks a little bit better than we do. Obviously, we're a little bit undersized out at wide receiver, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's not like teams have 6'3" corners running around. You should be able to hold your blocks against guys that are similarly your size, and for the most part, these receivers are blocking guys they're pretty close to their size. So the receivers need to figure out a way to block this edge if Frost wants to run the offense he's trying to run.
Kenny Bell was fantastic at it. Remember Kenny Bell?
So good, man. I love
it. He was so good at blocking.
He was a dog. He was a dog down the field. That's for sure.
Oh, I miss him.
But yeah, so I think just overall some coaching decisions. I think we were talking about them already a little bit. I mean, with Stoll,
Colorado, big one.
Stille, some in-game decisions when it comes to just decision making overall. I don't know if
not telling Martinez to stay in bounds in the Iowa game.
That type of stuff is like, man, that hurts. But with that said, I think we can get into the moments where you're just like, or the segments of the team where you're just mind blown about how bad they could potentially be, and that's where we're at right now. So Caleb, take us away with the ugly. I know this is your favorite part.
Oh yeah, nothing like the same things happening over and over and over and over and over and over again, and watching us expect different results. It was so fun this year, guys. Let me tell you, the ugly parts were ugly, and there's nothing uglier. There's nothing uglier than our special teams. It was horrible. I think our highlights of our special teams this year was especially the touchdown run against Wisconsin when we go up and we just give them the tie right back in the first quarter. I don't think there was anything more deflating than that for the whole stadium. It was
there was something just as deflating.
Oh, yeah, there was, because Iowa, we did the same thing. It's like I was deja vu. Our defense scores, and then our special teams allows a touchdown right back.
Oh man,
how painful!
That pick six was like
so hype.
Oh my goodness, the hype was insane,
and it lasted 10 seconds, just like Wisconsin. It lasted a full 10 seconds, and then our special teams got back out there and like, oh, let's give up a touchdown, I guess. Goodness gracious, I was so pissed.
Yeah,
that's disgusting. Like, absolutely horrifying.
And that's just our return game.
That's only one part
of the special teams. Let alone our field goal kicking, let alone our kicking, let alone our punting. It was tragic. I don't know if there was a more...
Armstrong is a terrible punter. That's just fact.
I would be impressed if you found a more all-around worse punting or like worse special teams unit than Nebraska when it came to kick return,
It was
kicking, punting. Like, it was just tragic all around.
impressive how bad we were.
Like, it doesn't seem possible for it being that bad.
And
Actually
how does
crazy.
this not get fixed? It just kept happening.
And
Iowa
not only-
hadn't scored like in 10 years on a kick return.
I know.
And they're not good at it. And they scored a touchdown.
I know. And not even that, but like our return game ourselves wasn't even good. I mean, we just started fair catching everything, like,
Yeah, just
I mean, I don't disagree with that, honestly. I mean, even if you're a
JD
good
not
team at it, well, half the time I would probably fair catch, but like,
JD not even fair catching and just letting the ball bounce and only go to the 5 or the 2.
like what happened there? I don't know. And also, ironically, teams kicked 93.75% of their field goals against us, which was 124th in the country. Not only are we missing all of our field goals, the other team is making all of their field goals. Like, this pain and suffering for Nebraska. Like,
How did it take so long for Matt Waldock to be the kicker? He was great. I love my keg stand guy. It took so long, and then he didn't miss. Like, he kicked 41-yard field goals. We're like, this hasn't happened all year. We haven't made one of those, and he does. He goes 100% in his 2 games. He was on the team like midway through the season. Oh, it was so bad.
Caleb
It
gets
was so
fired up
bad.
over this stuff, I mean,
Dude, special teams, that's where you win. This is the details. This is the stuff that matters.
Oh,
This is
no.
how you
Yeah, it
it and
is.
lose games.
it is.
Field
I mean,
position-
it was think
The
about how many
Big
times
Ten
it
is
was
a game of
difference.
field position. That's just what it is. It's a slow, methodical. That's how Big Ten football is.
Let's just say
It's
you
not this-
let's just say you had a magic wand and just like gave us the 35th ranked special teams unit in the country. We might win like two
more games, 2 to 3 more,
maybe
2
3.
3 more games. Because we think about all the field goals we missed, the bad punts, the kick return, field
I mean, you
position
just think
stuff.
Colorado, Iowa, and Purdue,
Oh yeah,
and then you probably win those 3 games.
Indiana we missed field goals too.
Yeah, I don't know. At least 2 games, maybe 3, maybe 4.
And
Like, that's how
so
big of a
much
difference that makes.
problems fall squarely on the absolute bane of my existence, the bird poop on my windshield special teams unit. I've never
It's rough.
seen it worse. I have
Yeah,
never
so
seen it
that's
worse.
going to be the biggest thing going into next year, is just seeing if we can make the steps we should be making as a Power 5 team to have even just decent special teams. I mean, it was an
I don't
inexcusable
have
this year.
faith in this.
So-
this is why it's in the ugly.
100%. So the next thing, I think there's just 3 cores we're talking about here, and I think you know where we're going with this. The O-line, the majority of the year was just terrible. Great. Yeah.
Great at
Just
missing blocks.
Terrible. And I mean, I don't know. Either of us could rant about this, but the whole year, pass blocking, run blocking, no matter what it was terrible. And there were
Snapping the
some
ball.
hysterical moments of just terrible blocking. We might at some point in this offseason just make like a gag
Compilation video.
reel, a
Yeah.
gag reel compilation video of some terrible blocking moments at this point, because it'd be a pretty great video. It is deservingly in the ugly.
Oh, it was so bad. And on Martinez and Vedral and all those guys, we're not making their lives easy by any means. When
Right.
You just
It
when
ain't
you're
helping.
rolling out. I mean, it got a little bit better, but again, it should have been red flags to us when Cam Jurgens, a tight end, when Nebraska has never started a freshman O-lineman in the center position, let alone a guy who was converted
Right.
to an O-line position at the center. Like, that's just how bad we were, how abysmal.
Again,
we
I
were.
want to focus on some of the silver linings, because I want to stay positive in some ways. I mean, near
talked
the
about
end of the
those.
year, it
was okay.
It did improve a little bit.
It was
I mean,
almost serviceable.
in the first, I would say 7 games, it was garbage, and that reflected in the rankings. If you go back and look at some of our videos, we talked about how on Football Outsiders we were ranked outside like the top 105, 110 in offensive line rankings. We finished 89, and that's not the easiest of rankings to like move upwards in, and so it just shows that there was progression near the end of the year, where we moved from 110th to 89. So
Ooh,
there's
3
some
spots.
improvement there. I mean, we also improved quite a bit in the passing category, the pass blocking category as well near the end of the year. Again, not anywhere where we want where we
Enough.
want to be. There was some positives to take moving into the next season. I think we saw a few flashes at moments of where our offensive line could be in 2020.
I know how bad it was when during the last parts of the game, how giddy I was when we actually got a block. Like it's just noticeable. Like when we got a push, when we got a push, Josh and I are just over there.
He's not getting touched.
We were high-fiving and happy, but like that should be a normal thing, not an exception to the rule, you know?
Yep.
Just picking up your guys, it shouldn't be a shocker to us. And when it was, we got big plays off of it because, you know, shocker, that's how it works.
Overall, the O-line, pretty ugly throughout the year. And that takes us into our last ugly of
the guy that's the people that PJ Fleck said, I'm going to target these trash cans.
The linebackers.
The linebacking core.
Oh, no.
Woo!
Yeah, I mean, it was an ugly throughout the whole year. I don't think there was really a moment where I was ever like, oh, look pretty good. I mean, maybe you could say the Maryland game, but like
Will Honas towards the end of the season made some tackles. I was like, oh.
Honestly, Will Honas could have been maybe in the there could be something there category.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
He
by
started
the end
off
of the
so
year,
bad though.
That's the thing. By the end of the year, he looked serviceable, and that I mean, we needed that going into next year because obviously we're losing guys who are pretty replaceable. I mean, you're losing the leadership of Mo Berry, which I do really appreciate.
Fired.
But when it comes to like straight up talent and how they play on the field, like they're pretty replaceable. And guys, you know, probably a very much a next man up mentality with his linebacking core at this point. But yeah, Will Honas, you know, decent. But overall, the linebacking core was out of position, couldn't get pressure, looked unathletic, and wasn't able to spread the field and make the plays in the flats that we needed to make.
Anything right? Nothing right. They over pursued, they under pursued, they missed their holes, they didn't fill their holes, they couldn't tackle when they were in the right spot. Just everything wrong. The whole time.
It was tragic. It really was. Definitely an ugly. You know, we could go on about it for a long time and give a lot of examples of where our linebacking core didn't live up to the expectations. But in a 3-4, you've got to have the linebacking core's got to be the best core of your team if you want to have a decent defense. And it was the worst part of our team. And therefore, we're gonna have a subpar defense, and that's how it went down.
Subpar.
And it's as simple as
that. That's nice. That's a nice.
Yeah, you know.
That's a nice word.
I mean, hey,
it was just subpar. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there it is, guys. The good, the there could be something there, the bad, the ugly. We hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys did, like, comment, favorite, subscribe. Drop all of your comments down below. We want to see what you guys have to say about Nebraska, the good, the bad, the ugly, the there could be something there. Where you guys
Is there anything we missed, you know?
Exactly.
Do you think there's some other players that were like, there could be something there? Is there more ugly? I'm sure there was.
There definitely are some more, there could be something there players for sure. I mean, we'll talk about more of them. You know, we got to save something for the rest of the offseason, right?
Yeah, we got all this time and no football to watch anymore.
I know, so we got a lot to talk about. But with that said, guys, again, drop all the comments down below. I'm Josh, that's Caleb, this is Backseat Sports, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.